President Trump says he wants to label the anti-fascism movement Antifa a terror organization. Trump called Antifa a, quote, sick, dangerous, radical left disaster. It's not clear who or what the government would actually go after, though, since Antifa is not exactly a structured group.
On September 17th, President Donald Trump unleashed one of his most controversial proclamations yet. In a fiery Truth Social post, he declared that the anti-fascist movement known as Antifa would be designated a terrorist organization. The announcement came just one day after prosecutors filed charges against Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old accused of assassinating right-wing activist Charlie Kirk in Utah. For Trump, the timing was no coincidence. He accused left-wing groups of fueling an atmosphere of hate, calling for investigations into the funding networks that support Antifa. But legal experts and critics quickly pushed back, noting that Antifa isn't an organization at all. It's a loosely connected ideological movement without formal leadership, membership, or hierarchy. Could a U.S. president even designate a domestic movement as a terrorist group? What would such a step mean for free speech, political dissent, and the country's already polarized climate? To answer these questions, we need to dig deeper into the assassination that sparked Trump's move, the legal hurdles standing in his way, and the broader political implications of branding Antifa as terrorists. This is the story of how one act of violence has reignited a national debate about extremism, free speech, and the future of American democracy. Chapter 1. The shock of Charlie Kirk's assassination. The assassination of Charlie Kirk sent shockwaves through conservative America. Known as a rising star in right-wing politics, Kirk had built a massive following through fiery speeches, viral social media posts, and frequent television appearances. His death at the hands of a 22-year-old suspect, Tyler Robinson, left supporters grieving and searching for answers. Prosecutors quickly filed formal charges, but no evidence has yet emerged connecting Robinson to any political group. His motives remain unclear, leaving a vacuum into which speculation rushed. Trump and his allies were quick to frame the assassination as the product of left-wing radicalization. For them, Kirk's killing wasn't just an isolated crime. It was a symbol of a broader culture war in which conservatives see themselves under siege. Whether or not Robinson was influenced by Antifa or any other movement, the narrative quickly took hold. The left's rhetoric had blood on its hands. Chapter 2. Trump's last straw moment. Trump wasted no time seizing the moment. In a post on his Truth Social platform, he declared that Antifa would be designated as a terrorist organization, calling for investigations into its alleged funding sources. Those funding Antifa will be thoroughly investigated, he wrote, signaling a sweeping crackdown. For Trump, this wasn't the first time he had raised the idea. Back in 2020, amid nationwide protests following the killing of George Floyd, Trump had floated the same notion. But back then, legal experts dismissed the idea as impractical and unconstitutional. 4 years later, in the wake of Kirk's assassination, Trump decided it was time to act. The proclamation was framed as decisive leadership in the face of political violence. But it also raised troubling questions. Could a president unilaterally label an ideology terrorism? And what precedent would such a move set for the future? Chapter 3. What is Antifa? To understand the controversy, we need to clarify what Antifa actually is, and what it isn't. Short for anti-fascist, Antifa refers to a loosely connected network of activists who oppose far-right movements, racism, and authoritarianism. It has no central leadership, no official membership lists, and no headquarters. Instead, it operates as a decentralized ideology embraced by different groups and individuals across the country. Some Antifa activists have engaged in confrontational or even violent tactics, particularly during street clashes with white nationalist groups. But many others engage in nonviolent protests, online activism, and community defense. For critics, Antifa represents an extremist movement that threatens public order. For supporters, it's a grassroots response to the rise of fascism and hate groups. Labeling such a broad, amorphous ideology as terrorism raises profound legal and constitutional challenges. Unlike Al-Qaeda or ISIS, Antifa is not an organization in any formal sense. Chapter 4: The Legal Hurdle. Trump's proclamation immediately raised eyebrows among legal experts. Under U.S. law, the State Department has the authority to designate foreign organizations as terrorist groups. That designation carries significant legal consequences, including asset freezes, travel bans, and criminal penalties for providing support. But when it comes to domestic groups, the situation is very different. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech and association, meaning that people can hold even radical ideologies without being criminalized. Subscription to an idea, no matter how extreme, this is not a crime in itself. As a result, there is no legal mechanism for designating a domestic movement as a terrorist organization. Trump's announcement may carry symbolic weight, but in practical terms, it lacks a firm legal foundation. Critics argue that this is less about law and more about politics, a way to frame opponents as enemies of the state. Chapter 5: The Politics of Fear. The assassination of Charlie Kirk provided Trump with a powerful political narrative. Conservatives are under attack, and the left is to blame. By linking Robinson's crime to Antifa, Trump sought to mobilize his base around fear and anger. Vice President J.D. Vance echoed the message, blaming left-wing political radicalization for the assassination and vowing to dismantle alleged funding networks. This framing fits neatly into Trump's broader strategy of portraying conservatives as embattled victims of a hostile culture. For his supporters, the declaration reinforced a sense of urgency and solidarity. For critics, it was a dangerous attempt to exploit tragedy for political gain. The rhetoric may deepen polarization, making compromise even harder in a country already divided along partisan lines. Chapter 6: Free Speech Under Fire. One of the most contentious aspects of Trump's move is its impact on free speech. If Antifa can be labeled a terrorist organization, what about other ideological movements? Could climate activists, Black Lives Matter protesters, or even right-wing militias face the same designation? The danger, critics warn, is that criminalizing ideology sets a precedent for suppressing dissent. The United States has a long history of clamping down on radical movements, from the Red Scare of the 1920s to the FBI's surveillance of civil rights leaders in the 1960s. Trump's proclamation risks reviving those dark chapters, giving the government sweeping powers to target political opponents under the guise of security. Supporters argue that violent extremism must be confronted regardless of ideology, but opponents caution that the cure could be worse than the disease, eroding the very freedoms the nation claims to defend. Chapter 7: The Ghost of 2020. Trump's renewed focus on Antifa harks back to the summer of 2020, when protests erupted after George Floyd's killing. At the time, clashes between protesters and police, along with instances of property damage, fueled conservative fears about lawless mobs. Trump attempted to frame Antifa as the mastermind behind the unrest, despite little evidence of coordinated leadership. Legal scholars dismissed his talk of terrorist designations as legally impossible, but politically the strategy worked. It rallied his base and shifted attention from systemic racism to questions of law and order. Now, in 2024, Trump is reaching for the same playbook. The assassination of Charlie Kirk provides the catalyst, but the underlying strategy remains familiar: portray the left as dangerous extremists and position himself as the strongman willing to confront them. Chapter 8: The Executive Order on Political Violence. According to administration officials, the White House is preparing an executive order on political violence and hate speech. Details remain sparse, but the announcement suggests a broader effort to codify Trump's stance. An executive order could direct federal agencies to prioritize investigations into left-wing groups, increase surveillance, and tighten restrictions on protest activity. It might also seek to criminalize certain types of funding or coordination, though such steps would almost certainly face legal challenges. For Trump, the order would demonstrate action. For civil liberties advocates, it would raise alarms about creeping authoritarianism. The battle lines are clear. Is the government defending public safety? Or is it weaponizing tragedy to silence dissent? Chapter 9. Antifa as Scapegoat. A recurring theme in Trump's rhetoric is the use of Antifa as a scapegoat for a wide range of social unrest. Whether during protests, clashes, or acts of violence, Antifa often serves as the catch-all villain in conservative narratives. Yet experts point out that the threat posed by Antifa is often exaggerated compared to other forms of extremism. Studies have shown that far-right violence accounts for a larger share of politically motivated killings in the U.S. Nonetheless, Antifa remains a convenient target, faceless, leaderless, and easy to demonize. By branding it a terrorist movement, Trump creates a clear enemy for his supporters to rally against. But in doing so, he risks inflaming tensions, painting all left-leaning activists with the same broad brush, and pushing the country further toward division. Chapter 10. What comes next? The designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization may lack legal teeth, but it carries enormous symbolic weight. For Trump's supporters, it signals toughness and clarity in a time of crisis. For his critics, it represents a dangerous erosion of democratic norms. The assassination of Charlie Kirk will likely continue to be a rallying cry for conservatives, while the debate over political violence and free speech intensifies. The executive order in the works could reshape the landscape of protest and dissent in America. The question is whether this moment will mark a turning point in the fight against extremism, or whether it will deepen the cycle of polarization that has already defined American politics. What is clear is that Trump has once again chosen confrontation over compromise, raising the stakes for the battles to come. Trump's announcement that Antifa will be designated a terrorist organization is more than a policy proposal. It's a statement about the kind of politics he wants to practice. Rooted in confrontation, fueled by tragedy, and aimed at mobilizing his base, the move encapsulates the high-risk, high-reward strategy that defines his leadership. The assassination of Charlie Kirk provided the spark, but the fire now threatens to spread across America's political landscape. Will the courts block his efforts? Will Congress push back? Or will the momentum of fear and anger carry this proclamation into reality? One thing is certain, the battle over Antifa is not just about one movement. It's about the future of dissent, the limits of free speech, and the kind of democracy America wants to be.